Hey, Gator Nation, welcome back to Respect Our Decision, episode 50, guys. Huge milestone. Thank you to everyone out there that's made this journey with us, man. We're just going to keep going on and on with this thing. As always, I'm your boy Hirsch, and with me tonight, CJ the Man McCann.
What's up, guys?
Our boy Wes is taking another vacation. The only man that takes more vacations than Wes is Dan Mullen.
Can't hide money.
Yeah, you just can't hide it. He's down there in the Caribbean, floating around somewhere, doing something. Hey, he's missing fun though, man. He's missing a good week. Maybe Wes has got that Gator Dave thing now, where you go on vacation and stuff starts popping off.
Yeah, well,
but as always, guys,
vacation, if that's the case.
Yeah, keep him on vacation, man, through the barbecue and whatnot. We might have some fireworks blow up. But as always, guys, make sure you go out there, download us wherever you get your podcasts from. And if you're checking us out on YouTube, maybe this is your first time watching the show, or maybe you've just been holding off saying, I don't know if I'm ready to make this kind of commitment to these guys, but maybe today's the day. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, guys. And even if you haven't, drop a like on the video, guys. Leave us a comment down below. We got a good bit of stuff to talk about tonight. We got commits. We got flips. And we are going to go ahead and do what we call tonight the Spotlight 6, where we're going to spotlight. CJ's going to take three guys, a freshman, a defensive player, and an offensive player, and I'm going to do the same, and we're going to talk about them and what their importance means to this upcoming season. Guys, we're close. SEC Media Days is just popping off. Billy Napier was up there giving some of his coach speak today. Didn't give away a whole lot. I urge you to go out there and listen to it anyway, man. Go out there and listen to what Coach had to say. I wouldn't take too much from it. Y'all know how this thing works. Coach isn't going to come. Coach was up there saying, quarterbacks are going to have a competition and all things are pretty much even. Max Brown does some good things. Jack Miller does some good things. Guys, unless catastrophe hits, Graham Mertz is quarterback. It's just what it is. Let's just accept it. Don't say, well, Billy said Max Brown looked good. This is what it is. Coach speak, guys. Y'all heard it before. Guys, but before we get on to that, make sure, if you haven't already, go check out our good friends at Alma Mater, man. They got some great merchandise out there. We will drop our link in the description below. Go check them out. Get some of that merch, man, before the season gets here. Get ready to rock. All right, guys, we're going to jump right into it. We talked about it before we went off the air in last week's show that as of the next day, Teddy Foster was going to be making his commitment. And as you may know, boom!
Oh. How about that?
Teddy Foster made that commitment to the Florida Gators, guys. Great to have Teddy in this class. This is a kid that Coach Raymond had prioritized for a while now. He hasn't played football very long. He's only played football for like a year, guys. I mean, he's 6'2", 170. He's not highly ranked right now. We know this. He's a 3-star on every service. He's one of those kids, though, that he's going to play. He's going to get more tape out there. He'll get a ratings bump. I don't expect him to jump in the top 200 by the end of, before signing day, unless he just goes out there and intercepts 20 balls during the season or does something absolutely incredible and shuts down everyone he sees. I mean, stranger things have happened, but I'm just saying, don't have this expectation that, Coach Raymond's evaluations are good and all his guys, they shoot up. This is a guy that's down there pretty low. He doesn't have a whole backlog of film. He hasn't been to all these camps that these guys make you go to. He's at a Cardinal Mooney in Sarasota, though. Coach Raymond loves him. Billy signs off. Coach Armstrong signs off. They like this kid. He worked out for him. They loved what they saw. And he's in the class, guys. So that's another cornerback spot taken. We're going to look maybe to add a couple more with Zay Mincy. Jamari Howard's still out there. They're still working on Grimsley that committed to Alabama as a possible flip candidate. CJ, are you good with this take?
Of course. I don't think there's any reason to doubt Coach Raymond. I will say this. Go to the page on 247 where they've got all-time recruits for Coach Raymond, and check out some of the 3 stars and low 4 stars that he's recruited, and you'll start to be like, I know that guy. That guy's in the NFL. I know him. He's in the NFL, and he's in the NFL. Of course, the high ranked guys are going to take the spotlight for sure. But once you start getting those 3 stars, low 4-star guys, he's picked out some pretty good ones. Being 6'2", 180, that's solid cornerback frame. That's exactly what they're looking for. He's got the right height and size. He's only played football for a year. His brother is an athlete, plays basketball for Notre Dame. To be a 3-star already and only played football for a year actually is pretty impressive. To get your name out there, to get ranked, get recruited by Miami and North Carolina. So I think he's better than what his ranking says right now. Like Hirsch said, I don't think he's going to shoot up and be a top 200 guy, but maybe top 400. He could definitely get in that range by the end of the year. Let's see what he does. I feel the same way about like Josiah Davis. It's the same thing. Let's see what he does. There's a reason they're picking these guys. And if they don't work out, then they don't work out. I mean, you're not going to bat 1,000. I mean, sometimes you miss. I think that the class was strong enough last year, and the pieces that we do have, are helping out. So I think that that's going to give us kind of a buffer to the next year. Like I said, you've got Phil Sami in the class playing safety, so that's a top 32 kid, 5-star. If you get Mincy, then you're pretty well sitting pretty good with the guys you brought up with Jackson and Dijon and Denson and Castell and those guys. So no, I'm not going to doubt Corey Raymond until he really gives me a good reason to.
You hit on something that I was actually going to circle back to that I wish I had said originally, but I'm glad you pointed it out. Yeah, man, Raymond's recruits weren't all 5-star, elite blue chip prospects. If you go through his list, there's a lot of guys down there that, like you said, that went on to play in the NFL, may still be in the NFL, that were in that low 4-star, high 3-star range that he coached up. Like I said, he likes what he sees out of this kid. He likes his twitch. He likes his not his streaming platform, his body motion. He likes his hips. He's got good hips. He can swivel his hips quick, do all that stuff that he likes his defensive backs to be able to do. So hey, man, I've got no problem with it. Like you said, until we start maybe seeing some of these guys not pan out, then you question it. But that opportunity hadn't come about yet. Let's see what we got going on this season. CJ's got a message.
My bad. I'll buy you guys a beer. I owe you a beer.
CJ's got a message. All right, guys. Well, we thought really that was going to be the only commit we really talked about on this show as we might be previewing one. But last night, man, we got done with dinner, hanging out, got out the shower, was watching a little late night TV, and boom, we got a flip, baby. TJ Abrams, previously committed to fighting Mike Norvell and the Florida State Seminoles, send out his old edit, man. Hayes Fawcett there sent out the old edit, and TJ just went ahead and straight flipped it. He didn't decommit and commit to us down the road. He said, "Nah, man, I'm gonna take care of business." There were whispers in the wind that it might happen in certain circles, but even the people that were kind of whispering it were surprised when he did it. So just one more receiver to that wide receiver room. Now I know a lot of people. We're going to talk about this for a second. There's a lot of people not too excited with his take, and I get it. I do understand it. He's 5'11". He's another short receiver. He's 175 pounds. He's another small side receiver. I get it. Some guys out there are like, hey, I want some 6'2", guys, 6'1" at least. We got 3 small guys in this class. I understand that. But this guy also has that one thing that we just keep talking about that you can't coach, that Billy wants, that we didn't have before, and that is flat-out speed, guys. This is another guy that runs a 10.67 100-meter. I mean, that's just – for reference, I had posted this somewhere else. For reference, Chris Rainey ran like a 10.79 or 10.74. So, I mean, anything in that 10 range in 100-meter, and you're absolutely just leaving, flames in your footprints. So, once again, this kid's from Dunbar. He's out of Fort Myers. I mean, this is another. You stole one once more from Florida State. We stole Kearney last cycle. Now we're stealing Abrams. This was Florida State's highest rated receiver commit. So don't catch him on a Twitter timeline or somewhere else saying, "Oh, we're glad he's gone." No, they knew he was gone, and they're just glad it's over with, so they could rip the Band-Aid off. Don't get. Oh, we're making room for Jeremiah Smith. No, you ain't. No, you ain't. You already whiffed on JoJo. Now you're gonna get Jeremiah Smith's gonna come down and get some $10,000 honey fried chicken. and y'all are gonna be searching. CJ, I know we talked about this a little bit previously. Another small receiver, but are you okay with this ad?
Yeah, again, you're talking about a guy that's speed and space. You're talking about a guy that's a gadget player. When you start getting a bunch of these little slot guys like we've got, they can be used in other places. You can use them out of the backfield. They can be valuable in the kick return game, screen passes, everything like that. We had Xavier Henderson taking the bubble screen. This is the kind of guy that you would actually want to take the bubble screen. So. Yeah, I'm completely fine with this. You're talking about 3 guys that we've taken now with, sub 10 100-meter times. So these guys are stupid fast. And I just think, like I said, I think a lot of it is the game just changing, right? And they might not ever be really, really great players in the NFL, but that's not what we're recruiting them for. We need them to be great in college. So they're going to be weapons. They're going to be players that you can spread out and you can tell them to run go routes and things like that, slants, and they can just beat the guy behind them. And that's all you really need them to do. So I'm fine with taking it because, like I said, comparably where we were at, where you had Dejon Reynolds and you have Xavier Henderson and those guys out there, Justin Shorter, who were all just really big-bodied receivers that really couldn't break away speed wise. Now you could win some one-on-ones with them because they could just outman a corner that might be 5'9", something like that. But when you start matching up with these 6'2", 6'3" corners on the outside that Alabama and Georgia like to get, you're just not going to win man-to-man matchups all the time. You need some guys that can outrun them. So I'm fine with it. I think that he's a solid prospect. I like TJ Abrams. This has been in the works for a while. A lot of the guys within the know were very confident he was an add to the class, but nobody really knew when. They just felt pretty secure in it. So I'm completely cool with TJ Abrams. I think he adds to it. And again, I understand the frustration. I get you want to 210 pounds and you can just throw the ball up to him. And I understand that completely. But I think, too, we're in a good spot based on what we took last year. When you have a Gene and a Mizell that you took last year that are, above 6 foot. And those are the kind of guys that you can kind of look at on the outside, especially Andy Gene. He's going to be an immediate playmaker. So I think you've kind of distanced yourself enough where you can kind of do this and take these guys. So, no, I'm completely fine with it. And the class isn't over with. The cycle's not over with. I feel like we're going to get at least one more wide receiver before the thing's over with that can do those things, can be the taller kind of guy. But, again, too, you've also added Amir Jackson in the class, which I – expect Amir Jackson to be more of a vertical threat, red zone threat player anyway than just a true blocking tight end. So, I think they've got their bases covered pretty well. And one thing that this wide receiver, core on the team needed was speed. And we've at least added that for sure.
Yeah. Like you said, they're going to keep working some guys. They're still speaking to Chance Robinson. They're still working through some back channels and whatnot, trying to talk to Moore that committed to Clemson. They haven't quit. You know how this staff works, man. Once they're on a guy, they're on him until he signs. Of course, they're still talking to Jeremiah Smith. Do I expect that to happen? No. I mean, I'm just being honest with you guys. I know CJ got y'all hyped last week.
My fault. My bad.
But no. And they're talking to a few other guys. Or maybe this is where you go out after the season, Ricky's gone. You'll probably lose another guy or two from that room via transfer or what have you not. And maybe that's where you add a portal guy that can play next year. This is how Billy wants to work the portal. He wants to recruit these kids. He wants to get full classes. And then gets a couple of plug-and-play guys that can fit the needs of the spot where he needs maybe a veteran guy on the roster. That's how
we saw
Billy
a lot
was.
of those. We saw a lot of pretty good wide receivers in the portal this past
Absolutely.
year.
They're the last 2 cycles.
I mean, they're definitely out there. If you can afford to go out and get one, if you're set everywhere else, then you can go get a guy like DeBose or there's the smaller schools, the Group of 5 kids. I think the Group of 5 kids are where your money's going to be really made with these portal transfers. It's just guys who are just like Randy Moss out there at Marshall, guys like that.
And it's the same with that and running back. I mean,
right.
They show that they can play the game at the lower level, and then they're, I mean, for lack of a better term, they start shopping themselves around.
Right.
And that's where you're like, I'm playing at Montana State right now.
Right.
And next year I'm playing at Florida because they desperately need a 6'3", 195, 200-pound receiver that can get up and go get it. Well, there you have it. I mean,
yeah, and I definitely feel more comfortable about doing that than a guy that was recruited and was in the 2022 or the 21 class that was a highly rated recruit that's really been largely riding the pine. I'd rather have a Group of 5 guy that's the absolute star on his team that wants to go play for
that's proven himself in game action.
Wants to go play for a bigger school. So me personally, that's the way I would go.
I mean, it's no different than NFL scouts finding these guys at smaller schools. If the tape looks good and shows that they can play the game, then the staff knows what they're working with. I mean, we saw it with Ricky. Ricky was on a team at Arizona State. Now, obviously, Arizona State, not a small school like we're talking about, some of these lower level schools, but he was on a team that did not throw the ball very much. But Ricky stood out, and Napier identified that and went after him. And I think you'll probably see us do that again after this season as well. All right, guys. As we talked about a second ago, though, we were really kind of expecting maybe to preview or talk about a possible commitment, and that would be one DeAndre Robinson out of Orlando is making his commitment. If you're listening to this, it's Thursday morning, you're listening to this, he will be committing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's pretty much down to us in Texas. Depending on who you ask, it could be a toss-up. I know a lot of people around the University of Florida feel very, very good about DeAndre Robinson being a Gator. I know some people close to Texas feel really close to, really good about him being a Longhorn. At the end of the day, it's going to be, does he want to stay close to home and play for the Gators and play for Coach Spencer? Or does he chase that oil money and head out to Texas? When you're up against Texas for a recruit, there's one thing you always have to be wary of is that they can outbid you. I mean, that's just what it is. So if this young man ends up committing to Florida today, if you're listening to this podcast, it's Thursday and you're listening, and he ends up being a Gator, solid recruiting job for Coach Chaos and the staff, because there was 2 weeks ago, nobody thought this kid was a Gator. We had written that off. That ship had sailed. Defensive line class, as far as the interior, was done. So here's hoping. Whoa! There's zoomed in CJ and
hey guys, how's it going?
All right, we're back. All right. So guys, keep your fingers crossed. Say a little prayer to the Gator up above that we add another one to the 24 to the swamp class tomorrow. Man, it's looking really good. We're sitting there securely at the number 3 spot in the team rankings, looking to add another one. Only like 4 or 5 more guys to go, though, guys, and we're going to be done talking about 24. Billy's trying to put us out of business over here, man. So, guys, like we said, we're going to talk about some guys that we think are going to be vastly important to this upcoming season. Some, we're not talking, not the quarterback position. We know. We've talked about that enough. We're going to talk about some other guys that we feel like are going to really make or break this season for us. And I'm going to start on the defensive side of the ball. And my guy that I want to spotlight is Devin Moore. We all know that Jason Marshall has the ability, we all believe it, to be a true number 1 shutdown corner. He had a rough little period of time last year. We're going to chalk that up to changing scheme, some communicational issues. You had Tony coaching one part of the secondary, Raymond coaching the other. This year, you've got Raymond coaching the whole secondary. I know everyone's really encouraged of what they've seen from Austin Armstrong already. And word out of camp is that Jason Marshall looks like a man-child. He's ripped up, ready to go. He's put on a little muscle. People expect him to have a big season. But on the opposite side of the ball, I believe you're going to see Devin Moore become a real star. Of course, we know he's got the size. We saw how he performed out there in the All-American game. He was an absolute monster, but didn't play very much last year. He was dealing with an injury in his shoulder that had to get operated on, that had lingered over from high school, and he tried to play with it, and he played well for a while. When Devin Moore was on the field, you didn't see Devin Moore or hear his name very much, and that's what you want from your cornerbacks. You don't want to see or hear their name. That means they're shutting down their side of the ball and they're not getting thrown on. Of course, Devin's a big kid, good tackler, good sense, nose for the ball. I really think that if you're talking about a guy that could absolutely make this defense shoot up the charts this year, from, obviously we know we're abysmal last year numbers wise. I think if you want to have ultimately a top 40-30 defense this season, and I'm trying to be very, optimistic. I don't want to say that we're going to have a top 10 defense. That would be an unbelievable turnaround. I'm not trying to put it out there like, Hirsch, you said we were going to have a top 10 defense. No, I'm not saying that. But if you get this defense top 40, top 30, and show that kind of improvement after one season, I think we'll have a very successful season. And I think Devin Moore is a huge key to that. We could potentially have shut down corners on both sides of the field. That makes so much of a difference if you can do that. So Devin Moore is my guy to just really spotlight on defense this season. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think we're going to see it early and often. And I think he's going to make Jason Marshall even better too. So that's my guy on defense. CJ, who's your defensive man?
I went with new defensive tackle Cameron Jackson because he's coming from Memphis. He's going to try to give a much-needed assistance to Big Dez in the middle. We watched last year with Big Dez. He was kind of like the main defensive tackle for us because Gervon played a lot too, but Gervon was really out of position. I don't think that Gervon was really comfortable playing the nose tackle spot in the times that he did. He's, a great player, of course, and he made strides that way to do a lot of things. And the Chicago Bears picked him up this offseason in the draft. But Cameron Jackson is going to be really important because we need a guy like him to really stuff the middle and make sure that the guys aren't just gashing us. And he's, you look at his numbers from Memphis, and they aren't like jump off the page like great numbers, but we've talked about it before. When you look at a nose tackle, that's really not his job. He's not going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 sacks a season. He's maybe going to have 1 or 2. And if you look at Cameron Jackson, that's where he's at. He's got 1.5 sacks. But the main job is to just make sure you're filling a gap so you can kind of push it out to your edge rushers and your linebackers so they can really come through the other spots in the O-line and make those plays. Cameron Jackson is also playing to get drafted at this point. This is the main reason he came to Florida, to put a spotlight on him, to play primetime football, people to see him. Florida has produced an defensive lineman in the draft for the last 12 years in a row, no matter what our friend Mr. What's his name, Big Baby Jordan Hall might tell you. Florida's been very good at producing defensive linemen. And Cameron Jackson knows that. Everything we saw from him in the spring game, everything we've seen from him in camp, showed it's really pointing towards him having a really good year, and definitely getting drafted like he's aiming at. So I think it's going to be very important to have a guy like him to be able to play a lot of the snaps, but not wear the other guys out. So you can have you could have Big Dez play when he's needed in his situational football, and he's not out there as many snaps as he was last year because it's not his strength. So Cameron Jackson is going to be very important to that and that front defensive line this year because we're going to need it because, you're looking at the secondary. It's going to be super young. Your safeties are really young that you're playing with. You've got a lot of young defensive backs. So the better you can do up front, the easier it will be for your secondary and the back side of the defense. So definitely a guy to look for is Cameron Jackson.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all. Cameron looks primed to have a monster impact on this season. All right, guys, we're going to flip now and talk about offense for a second. And this is a guy my guy for offense is a guy we've talked about on the show all last season. I had to take this one while Wes was on vacation, so he didn't get mad. And mine's Kingsley, guys. We're having a lot of changes on that offensive line this season. A lot of changes, a lot of shifting around. And you need Kingsley as the most experienced offensive lineman you have and the center to be a true leader. I mean, we're not just talking about his on-field performance. We're talking about his ability to make sure guys are lined up correctly. Guys know the snap. Everybody's doing their job. Everybody knows the man that they're supposed to be taking and their responsibility on each and every play. And that falls on Kingsley. And Billy Napier has made him has put a lot of responsibility on his shoulders. He even spoke about it today at media day and whatnot, was talking about how, Billy has really put a lot upon him and he's ready for that challenge. Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out really early and often. We know Kingsley had a rough season last year. He didn't live up to the expectations that most of us had for him. And I think he took that to heart. I really do. I think Kingsley really took that to heart. I think he's worked hard at his craft. I believe Coach Sale and Coach Stapleton will have that young man ready to go. He's been under their tutelage now going, on for 2 seasons. So I really expect Kingsley to take the jump that we were hoping he'd have last year and have it this year. But I hope even more so that he takes the jump with the leadership role and is ready to make sure that the 4 other guys that are playing on that offensive line with him know that he's got their back and he's ready to make sure that this offensive line doesn't take a step back this season despite there being new guys around him. So a lot of responsibility, not just each and every play, but just in that leadership role. And Kingsley is a guy that absolutely just has to do what we expect of him this season. CJ?
Yeah, I came into the last season. We were glowing about Trevor Etienne, and that's why I went with Montrell Johnson on the offense because I feel like he's very important. Montrell Johnson's going to eat up a lot of the carries this year. He's super important in this offense. He's going to have to perform to make sure that running game, because we're going to run the ball a lot. So we need him to perform well because he's the main back in the offense. Trevor Etienne might be like the flashy guy and he makes the big plays, but Montreal's kind of the workhorse. Like you look at all the great backfields in history. You look at Arkansas. You look at Arkansas with Felix Jones and Darren McFadden. Everybody talked about Darren McFadden, but Felix Jones was pretty damn important to that offense. And that's kind of the role that Montrell Johnson is playing, is the guy who's really the bell cow of the offense to really open up spots for guys like Trevor Etienne to make that big playability. I remember coming into last season, and a lot of people were in the conversation of who's going to be the main back. And most people were on the Lingard train, but I was like, guys, this is going to be Montrell. I watched Montrell play. I watched him play at Louisiana Lafayette, and I watched him play in the spring game. And I'm like, that guy looks head and shoulders better than most of the backs that we've seen come through here. I was like, that's a guy that can really fill the role that Dameon Pierce was playing. And we saw it last year. He ran for over 800 yards. He scored 10 touchdowns. And I would expect him to be a guy who could potentially have 1,000-yard rushing season this year. And it's going to be important because that takes a lot of the pressure off of Graham Mertz, because Graham Mertz is very important to the play action game. He does best when you look at his numbers. All his best numbers can come out of the play action. What do you need to run the play action? You need to have a good running game. If they don't respect you running the football, if they can shut you down and you cannot run the football, they're not going to bite on the play action, because why in the world would you ever run it if you can't? So it's going to be important here with Montrell Johnson as a role. He's not fighting for a spot this year. This is his team. Montrell Johnson is your lead back, and he's going to have a big role in the way that this offense ebbs and flows. So you got to look at him as a guy, and maybe it's kind of going really cheap with it. You know, when we talked about, we didn't want to really pick players that were household names per se, you know, like Graham Mertz, Ricky Pearsall, those guys. But Montrell Johnson is super important to the success of this football team. He's got to take the ball, and he's got to run the ball and be effective and be a guy that you can say, Montrell, we need 2 yards. It's 4th down and 2. I need 2 yards, and you can hand him the ball. That's what's going to win us football games. It's going to be the ground and pound. We're going to have to run the ball to be successful this year. There's no other way around it.
You're not wrong. I mean, it's just the best way to take the heat off of Mr. Mertz is to just pound it out. All right, guys. Well, now we're going to talk about, and I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here, because I've been talking about this guy since he signed, since he committed. As we talk about our freshmen, each take a freshman that we think is going to be a spotlight. Andy Jean was going to be a low-hanging fruit. We've talked about Andy Jean a lot, and Andy Jean is obviously going to play this year. But I'm going to talk once again about Eugene Wilson. I know the videos out there circulating today on the Twitter sphere of him doing a one squat of like 575 pounds, which I wish he wouldn't do, but I'm not a strength and conditioning coach, so I'll just shut up and let them do their thing. But this is a guy, man. I saw somebody say it on Twitter today that they knew Eugene was going to be the truth when he just showed up to campus in a tank top and went right on inside the building. He didn't pose for pictures or nothing. It was like he just showed up to go to work, like he just
clocking in.
Yeah, like he was just clocking in to go to his job. He's a kid that doesn't say much. Like he committed last year, and you never heard from him again. It was like he just disappeared. It wasn't like he didn't take any other visits. He didn't talk about any other visits. He didn't talk about Florida much. Like it was just like, all right, I've done my thing. I'll show up. Then we're going to play some football. And that's the approach I think this guy's got. But if you've watched the film of this guy, and I'm sure most of you have by now, I've seen some video clips of Eugene. Once Eugene gets the ball in his hands, it's on. It is on. That man has the twit. He's got that Kadarius Toney, you know, now you see me, now you don't kind of twitch to him. And that, you know, and then when he hits that straightforward speed, he hits that gear and he can go, man. He's going to be that guy. We talked about Xavier Henderson taking a bubble screen. I have just been dreaming of watching Eugene Wilson take a bubble screen ever since I saw his video highlights last year. I think this is going to be a kid that you're going to find ways to get the ball in his hand, you know, screen passes, drags, kick returns. I know Billy came out today and said that Ricky Pearsall was going to be the punt returner. You know, we all might have different feelings about that, and that's fine and dandy. It wouldn't be surprising if eventually that was something Eugene did as well. But you can bet money that this staff is going to find ways to get the ball in this young man's hand. He's too good of a weapon not to. So he's another one of those guys that I think week one, he's going to have a slew of plays that are his pet plays. Him and Andy Jean both. But I think, you know, Eugene Wilson might not touch the ball but 3 times a game. But I think those 3 times a game, he's going to make some stuff happen. And you just can't account for that. That's just one of those, he's one of those guys that just can instantly take a 2-yard swing pass and turn it up and make 2 guys miss and be gone. And, we've had plenty of those guys. We've had Tony. We've had Percy. We've had those guys before. And this offense definitely was missing that the last 2 years since Tony went pro anyway. So Eugene Wilson is my freshman that I really think outside of Andy Jean is going to make a tremendous impact. CJ?
I think people have heard me talk enough about Jaden Robinson, so I was going to leave him alone this time. I'm a super huge fan of Jaden Robinson. I think that guy is flying way under the radar, and as soon as he intercepts 2 or 3 passes, we're going to be like, whoa, man, hold on. But I went with Kelby Collins because Kelby Collins is a guy that I've just heard nothing of. He's ready. He looks like he's been here 2 or 3 years. And he's a freshman. He's walking in now, and he's got that swagger about him where you wouldn't know he was a freshman if we didn't tell you. He's the kind of guy that's going to be able to make plays immediately. When you're talking about big-time edge rushing guys that can play on that D-line and make plays, you're talking about impact players. You're talking about the kind of players that you get the best return on, and Kelby Collins is one of those guys. Nick Saban wanted him bad. They recruited him to the end. And if that's not enough of an approval for you, I don't know. The guy is absolutely could have been a 5-star player last year. He was knocking on the door of that most of the season. A guy that he's a gamer. I remember the report that came out the first week of spring training when he was there that Kelby Collins looks like a guy who could have an NFL badge on his chest. Like he's that kind of guy immediately. Jumps off the page. He's a hard worker kid. He doesn't say a whole lot. He's not, out here, when he does say something, it's very positive. It's to the nature of uplifting the team. He's already got that leader aspect of him.
Or he's recruiting.
Yeah, or like you said, or recruiting, being extremely team-oriented. He's the kind of guy, like I said, he's a locker room guy. He's a guy you want. He's got a great character about him. He wants this team to succeed. He knew what he was signing up for. He could have went to play for Alabama. He chose not to. That was the easy thing to do. He chose to do this. He says, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to Florida, and I'm going to help build what they've got going on down there. He's going to take the path that's a little more difficult. But the guy's going to be a leader. He's going to be a captain on the team in a few years. He's that kind of guy. He's a guy who's got no interest in playing it safe. He wants to play football. When you got him on the field, he's going to make an impact. And you might not see it every play, but when you rewind it and you watch him on the line and watch some of the stuff he's going to do, you're going to be like, wow, that was a great play. That opened up this. That helped him get through. That helped Cersei get through. That helped Uman Mielen get through. That helped Shamar James get through. So you're going to look at him as a kid who's just an absolute gamer. I think that we're going to look at him and be a kid who's going to be on the freshman All-American team because I think he's just that ready to play. I don't remember the last time I saw a guy like Kelby Collins come in that was just like a kid who'd been here. Like he's not a freshman. He's almost like he's a junior or a senior already as a kid. He's not, this inexperienced, he's not like, well, we got to ease him in. We got to let him learn. He's ready to go now. You could start him on any team in the country, I think. So Kelby Collins is a guy that's going to be significant to the success of this football team this year. And I think he's going to be a guy that we're going to be talking about week after week after week after week. It was like, wow, did you see what he did? So definitely keep an eye out for Kelby Collins.
Yeah, Kelby is – we've had a couple of people tell us that they just believe Kelby Collins has future All-American written all over him. He's going to play early and often. I can't wait to see what that young man brings to the table. People – a lot of these upperclassmen better be ready to go.
Yeah, you better pack a lunch.
Because there's some talented boys that came on the campus that are gunning for their job, and we're told it's there to be had. No job is safe. The only jobs on this team that I think are safe, Montrell Johnson, NTN, Jason Marshall, and Princely, to be very, very honest with you. And I know there's a couple others, but I mean, just saying the rest of these jobs, you better be ready to work because they're going to find the best 11 on each side of the ball that can line it up week one and go. All right, guys. Well, those are our 3 each. the 6 that we chose. If you've got 3 that you think maybe are better options or guys that you're really looking forward to seeing this year, drop them down below in the comments. Drop your offensive guy, your defensive guy, and your freshman, and we'll read them off, man. We like reading y'all's responses to these kinds of things and seeing what your thought processes are, because obviously you're going to be thinking, while we're saying this, you're like, well, I would have chose somebody else over that. I think this guy, I think Jordan Castell might have a great season. He could play. Any of these guys, Jakeem Jackson might play. I mean, there's a lot of guys we could choose. Like I said, Andy Jean would have been an easy one to choose on offense, but I think we all know Andy Jean's going to do the thing this year. So, guys, with that being said, that's pretty much all we got this week. Pretty short, to the point. Dead period still going on in recruiting, even though we're getting commits. Look at us go. Coach is up there in Nashville doing the talk, and kids are committing to Florida. It's a good time to be a Gator. We're getting close, guys. We're getting real close. We're going to get to the end of this month, and then it's going to be real football is going to be upon us. So we're going to have more and more content coming your way. We're going to talk more and more about – we'll start shifting, especially if the whole class is filled up. We're going to have to shift gears and talk about other things.
Yeah.
Next week, we'll probably talk a little bit more about the barbecue and do a little preview of the barbecue coming up and some of the kids we expect at that. Obviously, DJ and the gang will be there, and a host of other guys that we're anticipating, but names are starting to trickle in, but nothing is 110% confirmed yet. But next week, we'll try to have a list of guys and maybe some 25 kids that'll be there that we might hear some action on as well. So until then, guys, as always, like I said, make sure you go out there, download the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. And if you're checking us out on YouTube and you haven't already, and you like what you've heard this episode, and you're like, man, I like these guys. Hey, we're even better when the third man's here. So we're just cruising along now without Wes going into his hype and in-depth analysis.
Soliloquies.
Yeah, man. So y'all go ahead, subscribe to the channel, man, like the video, hit the notification bell so you get a notification every time we drop new content. CJ, you got anything to add before we drop?
No, I just want to say thank you guys for supporting us as creators. Leave a 5-star review on the podcast link. If you listen to the podcast, that helps us out a ton. Drop a review there. Check out our friends with Alma Mater. They just released a brand new hat over there with the Florida script on the poncho design. That looks really cool. So check them out. And again, I'm sure that we're going to get a boatload of stuff coming soon. With the football season rolling around the corner, they did a lot for baseball. They did a lot for softball as well. So I'm assuming the fall sports and the winter sports get here. We're really going to ramp up some more as they continue to grow. But yeah, thank you guys so much for following along with us. Check out the Twitter page, join the Facebook group, some great chat and discussion over there. Interact with those folks, interact with me and Hirsch on Twitter. We like to interact with you guys as well. So thank you for always checking us out, always following us, interacting with us. It really makes the job a lot easier and a lot more fun.
Absolutely, it does, guys. And make sure you go ahead and check out Pot of the People as well. We drop that every Saturday. We're going to go ahead this week and also upload it to the podcast providers as well. We had some requests from people on our Facebook group that maybe we do that they don't have time to sit down and watch the YouTube show. And I get that. If you don't, you don't. I understand it. It's a busy world out there. Lots of people on the go. So we're going to go ahead and do that this week. We're going to upload Pot of the People as well, to YouTube and to our podcast providers to go ahead and give you all an opportunity to check out that show because we sure do love doing it. So guys, make sure you go ahead, check that out, download it, subscribe, drop us some comments, man. We love your interactions. We appreciate you. And as always, go Gators.
Go Gators.